lovely links, haven't we, with the community. You know, we've had WI in doing knitting with some of our children. We've had Vintage Blacon in working with some of our vulnerable children.
Countess of Chester Hospital we've done work with.
Countess of Chester.
And also you talked to, when I first came here, you talked about the stained glass windows.
Yes, with the elderly people of the area who they did it one-to-one, didn't they, with the children, and that was a lovely activity to witness.
And we've got plans in place for how, because it's in our action plan as well for this year, for what we want to do to develop those links further. So we've talked about going and singing in an old people's home and making those connections.
Need to adopt an old person.
I've taken some, just for some social skills, I've taken some of our snugglers to over the road, and we've gone, right, the office needed a letter posting, right, come on, let's go and practice our listening, our speaking, and kind of just being out in the environment, and right, how should we be kind of behaving, or and they're massive things that you take for granted, and you think, oh, every child's going to be able to know how to do that. And I think that sometimes for me is, some people, I think probably me as well, like when I first started, think, oh, they'll know how to do that, and it's actually when you get talking and when you build those relationships up with those children, they don't. And they're not experiencing some things that everyone else takes for granted, and it's just, it's massive. And I think since you did that first meeting on nurture, I can't get away from it now, and I don't want to get away from it, because it's been incredible. It has. It's just seeing that impact is just massive for me. So yeah,
it's seeing those children finally succeeding in a classroom where we know that they would have struggled to be.
Yeah.
And they were struggling to be.
Massively.
And now they're back in the classroom, functioning really, really well. Really, really well, and they're thriving. And you know, it can only be put down to the work that we've done with them, and the work we've done with the parents as well, and just to promote it and say what we're doing.
The transition as well, we do massive things on transition, don't we?
Yeah.
Transition into classes for the following year, for getting them used to a new adult, so we don't just kind of shove them in the next classroom. It's a case of, right, let's come and meet your teacher. The teacher comes and meets them. We have a really lengthy process for transition in the school, because we see that as a period of time that children do tend to find really tricky, and a lot of the worries and the concerns come up around then. So we've put in a big plan in place for transitions each year into new year groups, and that is a massive thing as well. So yeah.
And we keep the 6 principles as part of our daily exercise as well, kind of, you know, every class has done something aimed at, which is at the child's level of their children, around it, haven't they, which is lovely, because we had leaflets, we've had posters, we've had just all sorts going on, the videos gone on about how it links to the six principles. You know, they're high focus, and everything, you know, we do assemblies, we'll bring it back to the 6 principles.
They know what nurture is, don't they?
Yeah.
So
our children are well versed with what it is, aren't they? Yeah.
Excellent. That's really good. I've got one very quick question for you. Because obviously with the National Nurturing Schools programme, it requires the senior leadership team to be right on side for that side of things. Have you got some advice for schools who are looking at going down the National Nurturing Schools journey but need to get that buy-in? So what advice would you give to sort of say, this is how we did it, or this is how you'd recommend sort of getting the head teacher or the board of governors or the senior leadership on side?
I think we've been really lucky with Michelle, haven't we?
Yeah.
That she's got that love and that caring, kind of nurturing side to her, and wants to share that with everyone else as well. And we're very high on attachment here, and that was kind of brought about with Michelle as well. And I think that's been passed along and down through us all. So in that respect, we've been lucky.
It's probably actually come down for us, rather than it coming up and something we've put towards Michelle. I mentioned nurture when I came here. I mentioned the nurture group network, as you were then, to Michelle, because I'd been in a school that prior had it, and it had worked really well. And we could see that there was a need, but we didn't necessarily know the direction that we needed to go in. And then I said, how about a nurture group? Looking down, perhaps we need to get more training around this. But it didn't take a lot of convincing for us, did it? No. I mean, there's been times on this that we have needed the full support of our senior leadership team, because without it, it would be quite tricky to embed across the school and to have such an impact. And to get everyone behind it, because if they're not fully on board, it really does have a big difference. We were lucky, Michelle was, but it would be really tricky if that senior leadership wasn't fully on board, because there are certain things that will really, really impact, the community particularly. They need to be involved, getting them in. There's a lot of work behind the nurture. The whole Nurturing Schools programme has been a bit of labour of love, hasn't it? Really, we're doing lots of it. I think what was hard for us was evidencing it at times, because we do it day in, day out. It was already quite embedded across our school anyway, and it's about going, okay, well, we do it, but how can we show in a document that we're doing it? How do you word it in a document that you're doing it? How do you evidence that? Was quite tricky, but worth it because it made staff think about it, because they helped complete the Nurturing Schools programme documentation, and it made them really think and look at the standards and what was going on.
I think the thing for me, I was saying to you before, wasn't I, when you did your training, and it was that video for me, from the Nurture Group Network, about Jason in one of the schools, and they showed a few clips of a nurture group, and it was quickly, they obviously sped it up and showed the impact of a session when kind of he was here, there and everywhere, and then the impact, and they interviewed Mum, they had Jason there, and seeing the impact that made and that had on them was just massive. And I just as soon as I'd watched that, I think senior leadership need to watch some of them, read into what the Nurture Group Network, Nurture Group UK are all about, and go from there, because it's invaluable. So yeah.
But no, without the leadership team being fully on board, it would be really, really hard to do and push forward. We've met teachers that have been really keen to implement it in their school, but they haven't had the leadership and management support, or they haven't quite understood the massive impact
I think
it could have.
It's the impact, isn't it?
The impact. If they could show it,
until you're actually in here and you're doing it, and you see kind of how it runs, and you probably wouldn't appreciate what a nurture group is until you see that.
But I've definitely say, if there was people out there to go and they were thinking of it, go and see it in action. Yeah. Because you wouldn't think twice about signing up for it otherwise, because you need to go and see it in action and see the benefit it can have to staff, to your community, to your pupils,
to your parents, to your children,
and just everybody involved in school life. It's huge. It's huge. That's what I'd say. I think the trainers that we've encountered along the way have
been amazing.
Have been phenomenal. Wendy particularly for me. I
had Wendy.
She, from the very first moment she opened her mouth on the very first day, I think I fell in love with her a little bit. And everything that she came out, I just related to.
It just came across that it wasn't just a job. It's the love, the passion.
And that's how we feel.
And that's how we felt after it, as well.
It's relatable, and and I felt empowered coming away from it with her, and the support that we've been given along the way has been really, really lovely. Everybody's willing to, answer questions, come back to us for different things. It's especially when it got to the time of submitting it, there was more questions being asked, and is this right, is that right, am I doing that correctly? People were always there to answer. So overall it's been a really, really positive experience, something that I still
Every
like
school
to think,
should have.
I'd like to think I'm still quite in the early years of my teaching career, and I've still got a few to go. And it's definitely something that I'm glad I've done as a younger teacher, that I can take forward now. Yeah. And if I end up moving on and they don't have a nurture group or a nurturing schools, I can still give those children the key kind of the
principles,
the skills that I've learned along the way to try and help those children that I'd perhaps move on to in the future.
Every school needs one, I do think.
Absolutely.